November 1963, a company plane flies low over central Florida. Below, it's all cypress groves, blackwater swamps, and cattle pastures. Walt Disney is looking out the window, and he sees a specific island in a big lake. But he sees more than just land. He sees the potential for a story and something much bigger. In his mind, this wasn't just about building another Disneyland. That was part of it, another theme park, sure, but something much more. This time, he was dreaming of a city, a living, breathing community of tomorrow, a place where real people would live and work, solving the problems of urban life. He turns to his team and says, "This is it. This is the place." Hey, this is Synergy Loves Company, where we explore how Disney connects to everything. I'm Eric, and today we're taking a look at how Walt Disney ran a secret spy operation that would eventually lead to Walt Disney World. All right, last time we tracked Walt's secret scavenger hunt across America. If you missed that, you should go ahead and watch that now or next. That hunt proved the East Coast demand for a Disneyland-like attraction at the World's Fair. Now, Walt faced an even bigger challenge, buying a city-sized swamp without anyone knowing it was him. How do you buy a kingdom in secret? This wasn't just a land purchase, it was a covert operation. To understand why this had to be a spy mission, you need to see what Walt was running from. And it was right outside the gates of his first park, Disneyland. Disneyland opened in 1955 and it was a massive success. And that success created a problem that Walt hated: cheap motels, tacky souvenir stands, and all the sprawl he wanted to escape from started popping up right outside Disneyland's berm, and he called it the Parasite. He had built this perfect controlled world, and it was getting boxed in by the very tacky tourist sprawl he designed it to avoid. He vowed he would never let it happen again. For his next project, he wouldn't just buy land for a park. He'd buy a buffer for his magic kingdom, enough land to control everything a guest would ever see or experience. Central Florida offered the perfect storm. The land was cheap. It was mostly swampland and ranches. The climate allowed for year-round operation. And the planned intersection of Interstate 4, I-4, and the Florida Turnpike meant that it would be at the crossroads of the state. But the key lesson Walt learned ever since Disneyland was control. You needed absolute control. No partners, no committees, no one else holding the keys to your project. So the mandate was clear. You're not just buying land for a park, you're buying a whole territory. And to do it in total secrecy. If word got out that Walt Disney was buying Florida swampland, the price per acre would skyrocket from a few $100s to tens of thousands. The entire project would become impossible. This operation was so secret, even within the company, it was only known to the Select Seven, a tiny circle of executives and lawyers. And to run the mission on the ground in Florida, Walt tapped a young attorney named Bob Foster. And Bob was about to get a new identity. Bob Foster flew to Miami to meet with a law firm. He explained that he represented a large, publicly traded client on the New York Stock Exchange who wanted to buy a lot of land quietly. And from that moment on, he stopped using his last name. To everyone in Florida, he was Bob Price, and Bob's goal? Make sure the price was right. His main contact was a lawyer named Paul Helliwell. Now, Helliwell wasn't your average Florida attorney. His resume was different. Before helping Disney, he was involved in funding operations like the Bay of Pigs invasion. His bank was reportedly a front for CIA activities. This was a guy who knew how to keep a secret and get things done outside of the normal channels. He was a perfect fixer who could keep things discreet. Their strategy was a corporate shell game. They couldn't buy 27,000 acres as Walt Disney Productions, so they created a family of fake companies to act as the buyers. Names like MT Lott Properties, Reedy Creek Ranch Corporation, and the Latin American Development and Management Corporation. They even had the I-4 Corporation, Ayefour, named after Interstate 4. These were all ghosts on paper designed to scatter the clues and create a trail to nowhere, or at least not back to Burbank. The buying strategy was smart. Go for the biggest parcels first. The largest one was owned by State Senator Erlo Bronson, who used it for cattle ranching. In April 1965, the Latin American Development Company bought nearly 9,000 acres from him for about $100 an acre. Another 12,400 acres went to the Reedy Creek Ranch Corporation. These were easy ones, relatively speaking, a lot of land in one purchase. But then came the nightmare puzzle. Years early, around 1912, a man named Willis Munger had subdivided a huge chunk of this land into 5-acre lots and sold them through mail order ads. People all over the country bought a piece of Florida swamp, sight unseen. Many never even visited the space, and now Disney needed to track down hundreds of these absentee owners all over the country and buy their tiny scattered plots to create one clean piece of property. Bob Foster, or Bob Price, went on a cross-country mission. He visited owners, sampled homemade wine in Tennessee, listened to banjo playing, and heard stories about land traded for a mule. He was buying a kingdom, one bizarre 5-acre lot at a time. But with all this land changing hands, the clock was ticking. And in Florida, the rumors about the mystery industry were starting to swirl. By mid-1965, Central Florida was buzzing. Newspapers ran headlines like 1.5 million paid in big land deal, and we know we'll get it, but we don't know what. Something was happening. A mystery industry was buying up everything, and the speculation was wild. People thought it could be Boeing building a new plant, or maybe it was Howard Hughes or a secret NASA project. Disney's own team started to feed the rumors as a distraction, some sleight of hand. Real estate consultant Roy Hawkins would send postcards from Seattle, home of Boeing, to friends in Orlando. The local rumor mill did the rest, publishing on good authority that the mystery buyer was from Boeing Aircraft. Bob Foster would sometimes route his flights home to California through St. Louis, home of McDonnell Aircraft. Sure enough, McDonnell soon became another prime suspect. It was a master class in misdirection. But one reporter wasn't buying it. Emily Bavar of the Orlando Sentinel. She had been tracking land sales, and little details stuck out to her. That fall, she was invited to a press luncheon at the Disney studio in Burbank. While other reporters asked about Disneyland's 10th anniversary, Bavar had one goal: to corner Walt Disney and see if he was behind the land purchases. She asked him point blank if his company was the one buying all that Florida land. And according to people there, Walt looked like she'd thrown a bucket of water in his face. He gave an evasive answer saying, there's only one Disneyland, but Bavar noticed something. He knew a little too much. He started talking about Florida's annual rainfall, tourist statistics, climate details, things that the average person, especially a California filmmaker, wouldn't just know off the top of his head. She left lunch convinced Walt Disney was a pretty bad liar. The secret was getting too big to contain. Another local columnist, Charlie Wadsworth, kept the mystery in his Hush Puppies column, and Bob Foster would have to duck out of back doors and hide in closets when Wadsworth came sniffing around the real estate offices. The planned announcement date for the project was November 15th of 1965. That would give him enough time to get most of the rest of the land, but the clock was running out. On the morning of October 24th, 1965, Bob Foster and another executive stepped off an elevator in an Orlando hotel. They were there to finally and officially scout sites for the big announcement that would happen in November, when General Joe Potter met them in the lobby holding that day's Orlando Sentinel. The banner headline said it. We say mystery industry is Disney. Emily Bavar had published her conclusion. She wrote that Walt's non-denial at their luncheon was, in her reading, an admission. The secret was blown. The land grab was now public. The very next day, Florida Governor Hayden Burns made it official with an ecstatic announcement. He called it the most important announcement in Florida's history, and he wasn't wrong. The immediate aftermath was exactly what Walt had feared for 2 years. Land prices around the purchased parcel skyrocketed. Disney had to stop buying. They had their core 27,000 acres, but anything they didn't already own was now suddenly worth a fortune. And this is where we get to the one that got away, the hole in the map. Because there was one crucial parcel that Disney didn't own. It was a 380-acre slice of land right along I-4, surrounded on 3 sides by Disney property. It was owned by a mystery buyer who was later revealed to be Ling Kai-kung and Wai Kai from Taiwan. They had bought it in 1962, possibly as an investment, maybe for shipping or the space industry. Disney had tried to buy it, but the owners wouldn't sell. Maybe they were holding out for the space boom. Maybe they just didn't respond to the offers. But when the secret broke, the prices soared and Disney was totally locked out. This parcel is known as the Bonnet Creek area. And to this day, it's not Disney property. You can stay there at the Waldorf Astoria or the Hilton, but they're not on Disneyland. You're completely surrounded by Disney property. You have to drive through the Disney gates to get there, but you don't get the Disney hotel perks. It's a private resort enclave sitting in the middle of the most magical place on earth, all because the original owners held out during the secret buying spree. The cost of secrecy was suddenly clear. If they had been discovered earlier, the entire project might have been impossible. They bought 27,400 acres before the secret was out at an average price of about $180 an acre. After the announcement, nearby land shot up to $80,000 an acre. At that price, just the land would have cost over $2 billion in 1960s money. The spy operation wasn't just clever, it was the only way that the Florida project could ever be built. With the secret out, the real work could begin. And it wasn't just building a park, it was building a government. Remember, Walt's entire blueprint was about total control. To get that in Florida, he made a radical deal. He created the Reedy Creek Improvement District. This was essentially a sovereign government run by Disney with powers over zoning, building codes, water, sewage, even fire protection within its borders. Walt's intention was to build a real working city, and it was the legal framework that made the project possible, and it ensured that the work could happen faster. The physical work was monumental. They had to drain swamps. We're talking about moving 10 million cubic yards of earth. They dug 50 miles of canals to manage water. Bay Lake was drained. The sand from the bottom was used to create beaches of the Seven Seas lagoons. The muck and dirt became the foundation for Cinderella Castle and the entire Magic Kingdom. They were built on top of a hidden network of tunnels for cast members and supplies, the famous utilidors. Walt's final vision, which he announced just before his death in 1966, was that this wouldn't just be a vacation kingdom. At its heart, it would be the experimental prototype community of tomorrow, Epcot, a real working city of the future. But he died in December of 1966, never seeing the ground break in Florida. The mission then fell on his brother, Roy O. Disney. Roy postponed his retirement to see it through, and he made one critical decision about the name. It wouldn't just be Disney World. He insisted it be called Walt Disney World, calling it a living memorial to the man whose blueprint they were following. When it opened on October 1st, 1971, that was the name on the gate, and it still is today. The ripple effect of this spy operation is everywhere. It created modern Orlando. The airport expanded. An entire tourism and convention industry exploded along International Drive. That swampland, bought for $180 an acre, became the axis for one of the world's biggest tourism economies. Every hotel, every restaurant, every theme park that followed exists in the gravitational pull of the Magic Kingdom that Secret Mission secured. So the next time you walk down Main Street, USA, or catch the fireworks over Cinderella Castle, you're standing on the site of one of the greatest covert operations in business history. A swamp transformed by secrecy, shell companies, and a staggering amount of nerve. That's the magic in the mission. If you want to see more on how Disney connects to everything, especially in the parks, watch this next and subscribe to Synergy Loves Company for more stories on how we connect the dots of Disney magic. And until next time, keep discovering the magic in everything.